Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a step back from the seriousness of the reusable colonization series. So today we're just going to be messing around a little bit. So a while back I watched a video from Scott Manley where he tried to get to orbit with the gravity set to 5G. So naturally, in order to keep things going forward, I had to try it with 10G. So here I am just trying to figure out if this tiny capsule will lift off with this massive booster, and as you can see, it's not going anywhere. So right now I'm just waiting to see if when more fuel gets burned it will get light enough to lift off, but pretty soon it becomes clear that it's just not going to happen. So you'll see in a few seconds that I just decide that I was being a little bit too ambitious, and I decided to set the gravity back to only 7.5 G. Still more than 5. By the way, if anyone manages to actually get to orbit with the gravity hacked at 10 G, I'd certainly like to know about it, because by the end of this video I'm, well, skeptical that it's even possible. So here you see me reduce the gravity and, well, accelerate very quickly. And there you have it, the first explosion of today, and trust me, there'll be many, many, many more. So now you see me building this, which is my second attempt. So at this point I started using MechJeb to figure out what my acceleration is, so I can actually find out whether or not the rocket will lift off the pad before I actually try it out. So at first I'm pretty confused, because for some reason this throttle seemed stuck, but then I realized that I had the throttle limited, so as soon as I fix that, it lifts off fine. One thing that I've noticed is, since, well, gravity obviously affects everything evenly, as you burn fuel, the advantages you gain from having an empty stage are much, much larger. So basically, even if you're just barely taking off when you're on the launch pad, give it 10 seconds and you'll already be accelerating at like 30 meters per second. It's quite strange. Well, not strange, just difficult to deal with. So this time I'm going to try and find out whether I can actually land the capsule. And, well, as you can see, that's not going to happen. Suppose I could have tried one of the larger parachutes, but I was a bit too focused on just getting up. So, as they say, the solution to everything is more boosters. So here I'm adding 6 of these. For some reason they don't want to go on straight and they're just tilted, so it takes me a second to fix that. So since we're taking off at 7.5 times gravity, we need around, well, just a little bit over 80 meters per second of acceleration to just get off the pad. So as you can see, well, as you should be able to see in a few seconds when I open the MechJeb window, this is, well, not good enough. I can't remember exactly what the acceleration was for that configuration, but I think it was around 50. So I decided to try this strategy, which is to put some of these insanely overpowered small engines on the bottom of these orange tanks. And to my shock, this is also not enough. This brings me only to around 65. So here I decided to go all out and use 4 on each booster. And well, can you see where this is going? Yes, also not enough. This brought me only to like 73 or 4. So as you're about to see, I ended up just downsizing the fuel tanks, because there isn't really a practical way of adding more engines. So now I have more than enough acceleration. Adding struts, of course. Okay, so it looks pretty good so far. Of course I'm running out of fuel very quickly, but at least I'm going somewhere. A few explosions, but thankfully I survive. So this one might get going pretty fast. I make it to 750 meters per second. But obviously that's nowhere near enough to get to orbit, to space, let alone orbit. So, well, as I said before, the only thing to do here is just add more boosters. So I decided to save those as a subassembly and just keep adding more and more and more. As you can see, I have it labeled as Insane Lifter, which I think is pretty accurate. So here I am just adding struts. I could use auto strut, but I sort of feel like that's cheating in some way. I mean, not that it really matters when you have gravity hacked to 7.5 Gs, but still. So at this point, the staging becomes a mess with all those engines and decouplers. It just is horrible to keep track of. So here I decide to use the acceleration limiter again, this time to stop me from just accelerating too quickly after I get off the launch pad. So here I am realizing that I'll actually have to burn some of the fuel on the inside ring. Burn some of the engines on the inside ring at takeoff in order to get off the pad. So here I am using fuel lines to go and refill the center tanks from the outer ones. So the moment of truth, and it takes off smoothly. Well, as smoothly as you can in this much gravity. You can see the insane amount of particle effects. Okay, first stage. And there goes second. More explosions, and now the third. Sorry about the voice, I'm a little bit sick. This time I make it to 950 meters per second. So this is when I realized that I'll be hard-pressed to even get to space like this, because if adding an entire new ring of boosters just gives me 200 extra meters per second, it's hard to even imagine how many rings of boosters I'd need to get to space or orbit. So this time, since I picked up a lot more speed on the way down, it never even becomes safe to deploy the parachute. So here I am going back to the drawing board, I guess, adding even more. At this point, I start to realize how completely ridiculous this is, even by Kerbal standards. So for a few seconds, I try to figure out the staging, but then I realize with all these engines all over the place, there's no way I'll be able to determine what's what. I mean, look at the bottom of that thing. That looks... I'm quite sure there are more engines there than at the bottom of SpaceX's BFR, and that's saying something. I mean, I don't even want to try and count how many there are. So as you can see, I try for a few seconds to organize the staging, and then I give up. So I decide to do what all good, well, I guess all good Kerbals would do when they realize that their project's just not going to work. I decide to make as many explosions as humanly possible. So that's what you're about to see. Stay tuned for the end, because there's going to be a spectacular explosion near the end of this video. So in a second, what you'll see me do is just put all the engines in one stage so they can all go off at the beginning. Right, so here you see me collecting all the engines. So as you're about to see, apparently that last ring was a bit too heavy, and I just can't seem to keep the thing in one piece anymore. You can see me just trying again, just in case it's some kind of glitch, but it soon becomes clear that this is just not going to work. So I do the natural thing and start adding struts and launch mounts, but that doesn't seem to do much. This part's pretty funny. You'll see that even the launch mounts are no match for the gravity. I actually didn't know that launch mounts could break, but apparently they can. So, as you'll see in a second, as soon as the ship loads, the weight is so great that, well, the ship just rips off the anchors and falls to the ground. As you can tell, my computer is absolutely not up to this kind of thing. Just the amount of explosions here plus recording is pretty much just the maximum that my computer can take. Then we have this interesting frame here. So once again, I decided to do the natural thing and try and fix it by adding even more. To be honest, what I probably should have done is just used unbreakable joints, at least until the ship loaded, but I don't know, I just didn't think of that at the time. And as you can see, as soon as the ship loads, it begins to just fall right off. Looks pretty interesting. It looks like the explosion is just being held inside of a cage. I like these white sparks. I feel like these are new, or at least emphasized in this version, because I don't really remember seeing as many of them in 1.1.3. So here I decided to try and lower gravity a little bit. The plan here is to take off and then re-increase the gravity, and then my computer decides to just crash on me, I guess. It just refuses to load. It takes around 45 seconds for this to fix itself. Hopefully later on this year I can get a computer that's, well, much more suited for this. We'll see. What I find interesting is that Valentina seems to be surviving almost all of these, which is pretty strange. So here I am deciding to try the unbreakable joints thing. But then I changed my mind and realized that, maybe I should just try my best to create the largest explosion I can with what I have so far. And, well, that is always a great way to end a video, so about to see it. So what I've decided to do is just, as soon as I launch, I'm just going to stage incorrectly and have all of these multiple boosters just smash into each other in midair. Okay, so there goes stage 1, and I know you can't tell, but I've already staged a second time. It just takes a little bit of a while because of the lag, and I guess everything else just for it to show. But so now you can see the entire ship starts to slowly crash against itself, and it creates this very interesting flame pattern inside of the rocket plume of the engines. I actually really wish that they made the regular rocket exhaust look more like this, because, well, I mean, that looks pretty good to me. Then we have a shower of debris that flies up, and miraculously Valentina survived again. Yeah, who knows how. Now that it's only 2.5 Gs, she actually has a good chance of being able to land this correctly, I mean, safely. There she is, floating down amid a hail of debris. There it is, starting to fall past her, completely obliterating the landscape of KSC. As you can see, she certainly could have chosen a better landing zone. Anyway, I think that was the last of the debris, and she has still survived, so she's a lucky Kerbal. It looks like I'm going to land right in the middle of this ring of launch mounts. And as you can see, one of those launch mounts is behaving strangely. Valentina does the natural thing and decides to stand right in its way. And promptly gets kicked. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be capable of killing her, so I suppose that's almost enough damage for one day. So hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.